All right, good morning. Good morning, everybody. Good to have everybody here in person. I know that we've all been waiting for this season to get going and get back to normalcy, so it's really awesome to see everybody here and have our players back and doing the things that we usually do in the off season. You know, our team events, our full team workouts, doing things that have over the course of the last 3 or 4 years made us a really good football team, help us grow, galvanize, and get prepared. So we've had a very challenging offseason, a very demanding one that has pushed the players, and that they've responded well to. And what we expect out of this group is the most competitive camp that we have had. We feel like we have a lot of position groups that are going to demand some really intense battles. Competition usually brings out the best in everybody, and we expect that. And we expect that from our players, and we expect our leaders to take that next step as well. So excited for our fans, first and foremost. It's been a while for them. You know, at least we had the opportunity to play, albeit a little bit different, but they haven't had the chance to be around us and us be around them. So for them to be able to come on out and see us not only during fall camp practice, but this season is going to be an unbelievable moment for all of us. And we want to make sure that we represent and put on the right type of performance for them. So that being said, thank you for being here this morning. Open to questions.
Mario, you mentioned normalcy. I want to know what you are expecting. How normal do you expect this season to be? Are you expecting it to be 100% back to normal? Because still have COVID, we still have the issues that we're dealing with, and still a lot uncertain. So how much normalcy are you expecting?
Well, we're operating under the the guidance of what we perceive now as being as normal as we've had in a long, long time. Can I predict the future? I can't do that. I don't know. Whatever adjustments come with that, we'll make. But as of right now, we are operating at a level where it feels that way. It feels like we're back to what it's been for a long time. So we'll take it day by day and go from there.
Right here on the left, right?
Hey, Mario. Ryan Thorburn with Register Guard. I guess I'll ask a football question since we're getting near there. You had a quarterback battle last year, but obviously it was abbreviated with COVID and everything. How do you see that shaping up this year with Anthony having the experience and obviously the 3 guys with all the talent coming up? How do you want to see that unfold over the next 3 weeks?
Sure. Well, I think like you mentioned, the benefit of this year's battle is that there is an off season and a full summer. There's a lot to that. The fact that all those guys have had a full spring, all the meetings that go with it, in-person walkthroughs and whatnot, with Coach Moorhead and the rest of the offensive staff, really bodes well for us. Certainly we feel like we're now at a level where we can operate the offense like we've wanted to since the day Coach Moorhead got here. Anthony Brown has experience, and he has done a really good job. Last year he wasn't part of the team during spring ball. When he got here in the summer, things hit pretty hard with COVID, and come fall camp, it was a very, I would say, moderated version of what we would usually do. So he does have a lead right now in that particular competition. He deserves the reps with the ones as we start camp. And the team, as we mentioned before, they deserve this competition at every position. And all 3 of those other guys, the young guys, Robbie and Ty and Jay, they've done a great job. And their performances merit an opportunity, and they'll get it. They're going to get it, and we feel confident that that room is talented enough to play at a championship level.
Right here on the left, Eric.
Eric Scopel, 247 Sports. Mario, anybody that you know for sure will be out day 1, and then anyone that was out in the spring you expect to be back day 1?
It's a good question. Anybody that I know would be out day 1 as in full contact. Be hard to tell. I could give you a better idea of that as we get closer to Friday. I know Sean is coming along really well. Sean Dollars. Jalen Smith is coming around very well. He should be close to being a full go. Linemen seem good. I know everyone always asks about Cam McCormick. He's done great. We see him progressing really well. And I'm just really proud of the guy. I know we've talked about it a couple of years and it hasn't worked out, but there's a lot of momentum there and a lot of positive ground being made towards returning to play. I'm trying to think about anybody else. If there's anything else, I don't think it's major. It's minor, maybe something from a soft tissue standpoint, but feel pretty healthy going into camp. Trey Benson, excuse me, would be the other one that has rehabbed. He's going to be very close to being full speed when we start up. He's looked great, weighing 215 pounds, just really rocked up, has had a great offseason. We expect him to be full.
AJ Jacobson with Rivals. Coach, this team this year is a lot of the same guys from last year, a lot of the same staff from last year. How would you like to see the team grow this year versus last year?
Sure, in every way whatsoever. I mean, I think a lot of times, or a lot this summer, what I've heard from a lot of people, I didn't really realize that, and I guess I should, is like 70% of our team is in their third year or first or second year. But I think when you have a regimen, an off season like we have, a culture like we have, year one is accelerated. So year two, year three players, I count those guys as being advanced, being ahead of their time. So what we'd like to see, well, it's kind of interesting. A lot of our staff members didn't even get a chance. Remember, Brian McClendon got here, Coach Moorhead got here late. A lot of these guys, we hadn't even met their families when COVID hit. The fact that we have spent that kind of time together, both in the meeting rooms and then around each other, you just see we were cohesive as it was. We're still learning each other. I think you see a staff that really understands exactly what we're trying to do, how we're trying to do it, why we're doing it that way. Players in a system that, there were some really good accomplishments last year, but we left some stuff on the table that we like to have back, that we know we could do better at. And then you're always going to see that from this program. There's never going to be any feeling of being content unless it's absolutely perfect. So I see growth. I saw some painful steps that last year we had to go through. You couldn't skip. And we went through them. And camp's going to bring some of those steps as well. It comes with competition. So all in all, just improvement, growth in every single aspect of our game and culture.
Matt Preem, 24/7 Sports. A couple times now you've talked about how this is going to be the most competitive camp to date for you. Why? What have you seen that's going to lead to being so competitive?
I just think talent acquisition and player development has taken its course. I think it's the natural progression of a program that's continually on the rise, that's on a steady trajectory going that way. And so now that we're relatively healthy, mostly healthy, and these guys get an opportunity to go out there and compete and show what they have, and you just see it at every position on the field. We have, we have guys that have the ability to compete, and now they got to show it. We're going to challenge them, and we've made it very clear to everyone that this camp is going to be the most challenging one that they have had. It seems like every year is a little bit more and more, but it's going to come from within. It's not going to be something that just magically happens. We're going to construct moments and orchestrate moments of adversity, tough situations. There's only so much you can put on that chalkboard in the classroom. They've got to feel it. They've got to go through it. And they've got to be challenged and pushed. They've got to be taken to that point where you're on the brink, but the brink has to be on the brink of a breakthrough, not a breakdown. We need that, right? That's part of growth. We need to struggle. We need to feel that. And so if you look around, you may have some positions that are a little bit more upper class or senior laden, but right behind them you have some really talented young guys. They're going to get opportunities to push. We think it's going to make everybody better.
James Creppy with the Oregonian. Mario, to roster management, I was wondering do you ascribe to the old Jack Welch philosophy of the 20-70-10 and motivating the bottom 10% and loving them as much on the way out as on the way in, because churn is part of the business now, particularly with the portal and the one-time transfer. And also, you're one of only 4 Power 5 programs not to bring in a transfer this whole offseason. And I was wondering if that was a thoughtful decision. Was that something that you pursued and things just didn't happen to break your way? Or, but as one of only 4, I didn't know if there was something to that necessarily.
I think you use it as you need to with so many different ways to build your roster. You have high school players, you have junior college players, you have a transfer portal now, you have players overseas, you have players in Canada, you have a good walk-on program. There's so many different ways to build that class of, on the average, 22 to 25. Your cap at 85 scholarships, bringing 110 to camp with any super seniors above that. So we have 6 super seniors, I believe, so 116 or something of that nature. So there's different ways to do it. We felt that the transfer portal players available just didn't quite fit what we needed. And we want to make sure that when we layer a position, we do it constructively where guys are playing, guys are developing and guys are pushing, and the best player may go. If it doesn't fit that criteria at that particular position group, we're not going to access it. Not to mention, it just next year may be different, right? We may have 3 or 4 different positions we need to fill, and that might be the best option available. So you mentioned the first question was something philosophical. Can you go through that again? It was like some type of quadratic equation you gave me. Go ahead.
You've heard of the Jack Welch philosophy, the top 20, middle 70, and I just was curious if you ascribe to that when it comes to roster churn.
Well, I think when I think of that, I think more of the fact that I guess the obligation and I would say the job of a coach, a leader, a manager, where you've got to get your bottom 10% to, at the very least, become part of the middle of the pack, and your middle of the pack guys to become part of the top of the pack. I just remember, there's been a lot of stuff on Bobby Bowden. Our thoughts and prayers are with Coach Bowden. I remember him talking about how important it was to take a look at the scout team, right? And when you look and assess that scout team, it'll tell you what type of team you have. If that's a really good-looking scout team, like they look like guys that could play on Saturday and help you win football games, you probably have a pretty good roster, okay? And so I think that it's important as you look at maybe the guys that aren't in the 2 deep yet and have spent time on the service team and the scout team, and they've just gotten here or have been vying for positions over the past couple of years, those guys have an opportunity to contribute. They have an opportunity to compete now. So that's why I feel we feel strong. We feel like there's a lot of confidence in what we have going into camp. And now the key is to make sure that, as you talk about percentages and what you got to bring where, that at the end of the day, we're getting 100% out of everybody, or as close to it as possible, knowing that it's going to be imperfect, but just finding ways to make guys better.
Right-hand side, second row, Jerry.
Yeah, Jerry Thompson, Ducks Illustrated Magazine. I heard an interview where you said your coaches and you had some healthy, heated discussions, table pounding type discussions, arguments, if you will. So could you kind of let us know the nature of, is like formations, what you do in short yardage? Are we going to have a quarterback behind center?
Well, that could be anything. That's probably on a daily basis, man. I mean, that could have been, who should have won between Hulk Hogan and Macho Man Randy Savage. I mean, that goes from one thing to another. We got some very passionate coaches, and when we go in there, we want to make sure it's a think tank and not group think. And there's respect, and you have respectful discussions. Sometimes they get heated, sometimes they don't. Some of that may have been taken out of context or whatnot. But what we do is when there's strong belief in something that helps the team get better, we bring it to the table, we discuss it. Some guys fight really hard for it. They feel it's going to be better, and at the end of whatever decision we come to as a staff, that's what we're going to go with. But it's important to bring that to the table. It's important that as it relates to a player, personnel move, situational football, a particular play, formation, a way to defend it, philosophy in a particular situation, travel, use of camp days and time, when to go in pads, when to bring in the short yards goal line aspect, when to add 5-on-4 pass rush, when to go 7-on-7 run. All those things are always brought to the table to find out, hey, what is best for our players? What maximizes our ability to improve as a football team? So that would be the best way to describe how we get together, how we have our discussions. Sometimes normal, sometimes heated, but all in all, very healthy and very necessary.
Back right, I think it's Julian. Is that you, Julian? Yep.
Julian Minnesota, KZI. Mario, obviously Kayvon has high expectations for himself year in and year out, and you can't look at a list of best players in the country without seeing his name. Where do you see his next stage in evolution of his game going this season?
Well, the best part about him is that he's focused on the present. He's not concerned about the accolades. His main focus right now is making his teammates better, the program better. And with that type of focus, with his work ethic, because I think everyone talks about his ability, I don't think his work ethic is mentioned enough. When you combine all that together, you have a powerful camp. You have the ability to impact others and affect others as a leader. And I think that's going to be his biggest impact. The personal stuff, the actual individual accomplishments are coming. I think they're coming in all different forms. They're coming in the forms of tackles for losses, big plays. They're coming in the forms that never meet the stat line, taking on a double team and controlling the C gap or the D gap in a Y wing wide zone play. I mean, it's going to come in a lot of different ways, and it's because he has taken a lot of time perfecting and honing up his craft, to make sure that he's doing his job to the best of his ability and he's able to affect the guys around him. So I think all those things are important, but the fact that he's impacting others by leading by example is going to be, for us as a football team, his most impactful, most significant push.
Second row, middle right. Second row, middle.
Sorry.
Hi, Coach. Sam Finley, Eugene Magazine. Talk a bit about Coach Moorhead and what he's meant to the program since coming in the past year.
Super sharp guy, tremendous human being, really, really high football IQ. Has got a great offense. And I almost feel like, just like as fans we got cheated, as players we got cut short of our time, he was cut short of what he was bringing to the table as an offense, and he's as excited as you can imagine with the tools he has to work with, the time he's had to put his entire package together, and the fact that he's a great human being, great recruiter, great staff guy, really does a great job leading, get along with others, great colleague. Not enough good things. I can't say enough good things about Coach Moorhead. He's got head coach experience, brings a lot to the table in that manner as well. Has had a strong impact on the team thus far. Players really gravitate to him. He's been a tremendous addition to this program.
AJ Jacobson, Rivals. Coach, last year is largely a six-man rotation on that offensive line. You've got your starters back. You've got a lot of young talent developing and some freshmen you brought in that are very, very good. In an ideal world, how big would that rotation be this coming season? How many guys are going to be rotating? How would that look?
You know, AJ, as many as are ready to play are going to play. I think there's a couple benefits to that. You've had 6 guys that had or saw significant action last year, and then you've got some young guys that are pushing and pushing hard and that look capable enough to earning time this year and pushing guys at certain positions. And there's a lot to go through all of them right now would take up a lot of time. You know the roster really, really well. And then you got some older guys too, like Dawson Jaramillo, been here for a while. Recovered from an injury the previous year. He looks great. He's ready to roll as well. So I don't think you put a cap on it. It'd be unfair. If you put a cap on it, you're going into a fall camp saying, we're limited in the amount of guys that can help us win football games. We're not going to do that. Practice is structured with 116 guys coming to camp where we can two-spot a lot of our drills. So whatever amount of reps the first team guy gets, so will the third and fourth team guy. That's a lot of film to evaluate, but it gives us an opportunity to truly assess where guys are, whether now they deserve reps with the next group and move them up a little bit to see if they can hang with that level of competition and then continue elevating them or, bringing them down a little bit depending on what they show.
Mario, after Patrick Herbert was kind of waiting his turn behind some older guys and then dealing with injury last year, where do you see him in his development, and what kind of impact could he have in Joe's offense?
We think he's going to have a great season. He is strong. He's big, athletic. All the traits that we saw in high school, they're now developed with an extra 25 pounds of muscle on his body. Seems like he approached the offseason with a chip on his shoulder because getting injured last year was very difficult for him. It was kind of a freak accident, and not an accident, but just part of football. And he's been chomping at the bit. And Patrick, he's very reserved and quiet, but when it comes to competing, he brings it. And he's been bringing it all offseason. We expect him to have an awesome camp.
Losing Isaac Slade, Matautia this offseason, how tough is that from a leadership perspective with the defense experience? And then Justin, I would guess, is somebody probably likely to step in. Kind of what have you seen from him physically, also as a leader?
I think whenever you lose or gain people, I think it's good both for the person and for a program. So I see it working out great on both ends in that nature. I think we have a great linebacking group, really strong defensive coaches as well, and some great leaders overall. So I think all in all, it's a big plus.
We have time for 2 more. Front, middle here, Max.
Max Torres with Ducks Digest. Coach, we talked about the tight ends in spring football. You said that you're starting to feel like you have the bodies that you've wanted for a while now. We saw Matavao, Ferguson. They certainly don't look like freshmen. What are you kind of expecting to see from that position as far as competition in fall camp?
Well, expect them to not pick up where they left off. Expect them to be even better than where they left off in spring. You mentioned a couple of young guys that came in at 228, 230 pounds. They're now sitting at about 255 and 260. The same thing with Patrick Herbert that we just mentioned a moment ago. Looking at DJ Johnson, who's maybe in moon pounds 270, probably a little bit more in real earth weight. Spencer Webb has had a great offseason. We expect Cam McCormick back. These are a lot of big bodies with a lot of length and a lot of range, a lot of special teams value as well. These guys are going to play a lot of football. It's a position that they play so many downs and do so many things. Sometimes they get banged up, so you have to have a good number of them. But they all can do the following things. They can all control the C gap. They can all stretch the field in the passing game. They're excellent on the perimeter, both catching the ball and blocking. They all do a great job on special teams and blocking, and more than half of them actually do a really good job on kickoff as well. So a lot of roles to be divvied out between these guys. They have a lot of pride. These guys attack practice and their preparation in a big-time way. Fired up about this group.
Mario, since camp is opening in just a couple of days, just your reaction now that you have the full and you're well-versed in the changes to camp this year by way of the 7-day acclimation period from 5 days, 2 scrimmages. How do you evaluate in these position battles with 2 scrimmages instead of 3, with less full contact? And is the hamburger drill one of those drills that is done and over with because of the abolition of straight line contact?
Yeah, some of those drills are out completely. We never did a ton of those, so it doesn't affect us as much. The acclimation period's a little bit different because, now mind you, we don't tackle to the ground all the time in a camp, which you want to keep the guys up, you want to keep them safe. A lot of injuries happen when you go to the ground, and not because a guy actually falls on the ground, just because bodies get rolled up, right, or people get run into them, and you want to avoid that all the time. So the changes, some of them deter you from what you usually do to prepare a football team, and others fall in line. And the addition of the spider pads, I think, is an excellent addition because, believe it or not, those first couple of days when you go helmets only, guys are really excited. I mean, they're coming out ripping and running, and sometimes shoulders are caught by helmets, right? Fingers, stuff like that. And the spider pads are another protective layer to keep you, when you're not going full speed, but when you're wearing helmets. So all in all, it is what it is. Adjustments have been made. Some things in favor of, some things you wish we would look at again. Hopefully we will at the end of the season. But all in all, I think just having the amount of days that we have is what grants you the opportunity to prepare. And the off day is different now than it was in the old days. You have a couple of hours to review film, can't walk through and all that stuff. But, you look at all our practices, and you got to find a way to meet, prep, walk through before, evaluate film after, and then later on be able to meet, install, and walk through, right? So when you come in again and you get on the football field, you're an organized operation. So those things are all built in, and the schedule allows us to do that. So all in all, I think it's okay. It's okay. Hopefully we'll look at it again next year.
Thank you, Coach. Appreciate your time.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate you guys being here. Have a blessed day.